What's up, YouTube? It's another day with the one and only Billy J. And this is my review of episode 12 of American Idol Season 15, the farewell season. And in this episode, the 12 performers that performed the night before in episode 11 also performed again, but this time doing duets with returning American Idol contestants. Whether or not their performances this night factor in whether or not they go on, who knows? But this is also the episode where they cut out 5 contestants. We have a lot to go through, so let's get started. The first performance was Emily Brooke and Lauren Elena, and they sang Flat on the Floor by Carrie Underwood. First off, I'm going to say that Emily sang way better tonight than she did the previous night. But unfortunately, I thought the song was too big for Emily's voice. And unfortunately, there was a big difference between her voice and Elena's voice, and Emily's voice is a lot softer, and when they were singing together, I thought Emily's voice got lost. But overall, I thought it was a good performance. Obviously not great, but good. Definitely much better than the previous night. The second performance was Thomas Stringfellow and Nick Fradiani, and they sang Man in the Mirror by Michael Jackson. Oh my God, I really hate this song. I didn't like it when Michael sang it, I didn't like it when Nick sang it last year, and I certainly don't like it when Nick sings it with Thomas. And I didn't like it as a duet. And one thing's for sure is that Thomas already had that hiccup thing down. I personally didn't like this pairing of Thomas and Nick, and I didn't like how Thomas really couldn't change the song to better suit him. And because of that, I thought this whole night with the duets, I thought everything was very karaoke. Next up was Stephanie Negrete and Ruben Studdard, and they sang Superstar by the Carpenters. What a great, sweet voice Stephanie has, and I thoroughly enjoyed this duet. They did a great job together, and it was a duet that I could definitely hear on the radio. Next up was Sana Kavade and Caleb Johnson, and they sang Skyfall by Adele. To me, this was also another very odd pairing. And unfortunately, Sana reverted back to being a bad performer. She had great improvements on her solo round last night, but this night, she reverted back to being a bad performer. Voice-wise, Sonica did a very good job. She kind of held up against Caleb's big, powerful voice. So overall, that was a good song choice for both of them. Next up was Jenna Renee and Scotty McCreery, and they sang See You Tonight by Scotty McCreery. I really enjoyed this duet. It was very fitting, and Jenna Renee did a great job. In my opinion, she's got a great voice, and she's also a great performer. Next up was La Portia and Fantasia, and they sang Summertime by Ella Fitzgerald. Who didn't see this pairing? This was a perfect duet, and it was a duet where the contestant wasn't being drowned out or showed up by the returning American Idol. La Portia is a star, and she held her own, and she definitely belongs in this competition. She's amazing. Next up was Mackenzie Borg and Lauren Elena, and they sang I Hope You Dance by Leanne Womack. Aw, these two make such a cute couple, and that flirting was so cute. I love Mackenzie, but like I said, tonight the duets were all very karaoke, because I wish that Mackenzie was able to change up this song to better suit him, and I felt that his voice was actually overpowered by Lauren. And he also did a great job in his solo portions of the duet. But one critique of Mackenzie is that he needs to work on his performance whenever he doesn't have an instrument to hide behind. Because he looked very awkward up there without an instrument, and he didn't really know what to do. So his hands were just kind of just like up like this the entire time, and it's kind of awkward. So take some tips. Next up was Gianna Isabella and Nick Fradiani, and they sang Beautiful Life by Nick Fradiani. I just want to throw it out there that I love that song, and that probably has to be one of the better American Idol songs. And I actually think that they did a great job together. And like I've said before, I always believe that Gianna was actually a very gifted singer. I just wish that she actually had a little bit more experience and a little more years before she was able to come on American Idol. Now, of course, I know this is the final year, so it isn't like she could wait till she was 17 or 18. But, you know, like I said, I wish she was 17 or 18 or even a little older, you know, to get the full growth of her. I mean, she's good now, but just wait until she's older where she can actually be great. Next up was Avalon Young and Ruben Studdard, and they sang Flying Without Wings by Ruben Studdard. At first, when I found out that they were doing this song, I wasn't so sure about that song with Avalon, but in the end, she nailed it. Avalon and Ruben actually complimented each other very nicely in the duet. A great performance and a great duet. James VIII and Caleb Johnson sang Gimme Shelter by the Rolling Stones. This was a good duet. James and Caleb both rocked out and performed very well. And James actually held his own against Caleb. They clicked very well as musicians, and it was a very surprisingly good duet. Next up was Genevieve Mitchell and Scotty McCreery, and they sang Gone by Montgomery Gentry. Now, Genevieve showed a very funky side of her, and she showed that she could get crazy just like Jen Blossel. And surprisingly, I actually liked this pairing and even this performance. I had a hootin' and hollerin' good time during this performance. I was very entertained. And to cap off the night was Jordan Sasser and Fantasia, and they sang I Believe by Fantasia. Well, on paper, this would have been the powerhouse performance, and it would have been the perfect end to the night for the duets. But in reality, it didn't turn out that way. I felt Jordan really didn't sing to the audience or the people there or to the TV audience. I didn't like the way he performed. He was jumping around and pounding his chest, and it wasn't a good performance on his part at all. And I agree with Keith in that Jordan, his voice was just all over the place. It was a terrible performance on all factors. Well, that's the end of the performances, and then the contestants lined up on the stage, and one by one, they were given reprieve as far as who was moving on. But only 7 were moving on, and 5 were going home. And so the 5 that were going home was Emily Brooke, Stephanie Negarete, Jenna Renee, James VIII, and Jordan Sasser. I'd have to agree with this bottom 5, with the exception, of course, of Stephanie. I personally would have had Stephanie move on, and perhaps Sonica be in the bottom 5. And also, one can argue that Jenna Renee should have stayed over Genevieve. But like I said, Genevieve made me a believer the other night, and hopefully she keeps making me a believer. At least Genevieve has the interesting factor. Do you agree with who was sent home? Leave a comment down below voicing your thoughts on the duets. And remember, peace, love, unity, respect. Peace out, guys.